Good morning, everyone. This is Professor Tracy Dean, and today's podcast is about time management. Again, we're going to talk about time management. So, the first thing I want to talk about is that everyone knows that we have 24 hours in a day. We all know that. And the question always is, how am I going to find time? How am I going to find time to study? How am I going to find time to get my work done? How am I going to find time to get my room cleaned up? How am I going to find time to get everything done in the 24 hours? Now, both of the textbooks that I read or I review, one of the first things that they tell us is that we need to create a time log. And do we always practice that? No, many of us don't practice a time log. But I want you to at least try to do a time log around your school schedule. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a time log. And what is a time log? A time log is recording how you spend your time. So you'll notice that when you wake up in the morning, what do you do at 6 o'clock in the morning when you wake up? Do you go on your games? What do you do at 7 o'clock in the morning? What do you do at 8 o'clock? What do you do at 9 o'clock? So you're going to fill out every single time of the day or every span of the day that you can to tell us what do you do in your time log. So if you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and the first thing that you do is to make breakfast, you write make breakfast. If the next hour of the day at 7 o'clock, when you are doing your time log, you say I start reading my textbook, then you write start reading my textbook. For some people, it could be reading another book, right? So you could say, I am reading my book. It could be a religious book. It could be a non-religious book. So that is what you may do at 7 o'clock in the morning. At 7:30, you may say, I am driving to go to work, or I am getting ready to go to my online class. That's what you could be doing at 7:30 in the morning. Then we go to the next time schedule at 8 o'clock in the morning. What do you do? I'm logging into class on Blackboard, or I'm checking into work if I work in a place that's open. So we could say we're doing that at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then let's say class lasts from 8 to 10. Then we would cover that period from 8 to 10, showing that's when class starts. Now, if we're at work, we could say we're covering from 8 to maybe 12 until we get our lunchtime for work. Then we also need to include when we take a break or when is our lunchtime. So you fill in everything. Then you go down after lunch. What do you do? So you're filling in for every part of the day what I do. Then I go down and I says, okay, and maybe have more work until 4 o'clock. Or in terms of school, from maybe 1 to 4, I have other classes that I need to do. Now, when you finish at 4 o'clock, whether it's work or school, what do you do? Some people would say maybe from 4 to 5, I'm driving home, running errands. And some people could say from 4 to 5, maybe I'm making dinner or I'm doing some chores around the house. It depends on your schedule. Then what we do at 5, 6, 7, and 8, whether we're eating, watching TV, having family time, and also go all the way until like midnight, until you go to sleep. Write what time you study. Write what time you make for study. And some people could have done it on their lunch break between 1 to 2. They open their phones online, they open their tablets online, and make some time to study. Also, sometimes when we have these time blocks to fill out, we could say, when I come home from school, that's when I make time to study. So the first thing in these steps that I'm going to cover, and they'll be about 7 to 10 steps, is time log. You need to have what they call fixed time commitments of when you do certain things. For some things, you're going to have fixed time commitments. For other things, you may have to have flexible time, whether you do another recreation, sleeping, TV. Then you need to look at, what activities do I spend too much time on? Do I spend too much time on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? Do I spend too much time on games, Xbox, PS4s? Need to evaluate where we spend our time. So that was time log. That was a first pointer. Number 2, establish a schedule. Many people say establish a schedule based on what you have to do. So I want you to establish a schedule based on what you have to do. So some people right now have to be maintaining a schedule because of work, because of classes, but establish some schedule. And what I tell people is that in terms of time management, we'd never have enough time. And in a 5-day study plan, in a plan to get things done, we may only have about 50 minutes, 30 minutes to get something done. So that is another thing. Establish a schedule, and that could be covered in what we call a 5-day study plan. The next thing I would suggest to you to do, and that's number 3, is to stay on task. And it is very difficult. To stay on task is very difficult. So what do I suggest to students who are always behind? I said the first thing I do when I'm doing online class, face-to-face class, and I don't have enough time to read every single page, I at least get familiar with the topics, read what is in bold, what is important, and you may call that skim reading. So I kind of read what definitions are, a few of the examples, so I get a gist of what's going on. So that's the other thing I do. I try to stay on task, whether I skim reading or I read for a period of time. So, and it's very, very difficult to do. But with some practice, you can get through. Sometimes if the textbook is online, I do a Control F or a Command F, depending on which computers you use. And then when you do that, you can go to the topics that is important for that class. So if the professor says, okay, you're going to be doing work on planning and organizing and work and evaluation, right? What do? I make sure I find those areas in the textbook and I try to go in and read that section. So sometimes I have to skim read to try to stay on task. Another thing I would suggest to you to do, and that's number 4, is set your priorities. Decide what is important for that day. If I have 40 things to do, I says, let me see which one is going to cause me the most stress. And then I decide that's going to be my focus until the next time. So set up some priorities. Look at what's important. And then you should go ahead and create something based on that. The next thing I do is in my day, I try to learn something different. When I try to learn something different, what I'm doing right now is not something I was doing all my life. No. I started doing this last year. So I took the site, went on it, and I practiced. Practice until it sounded pretty good, and then I made more recordings. Now, after I did that, I did the same thing with the YouTubes that I've been sharing with students. I practice. Every time I learn a new skill, I find some way to practice it. I find some people to practice it, whether it's the family members or my kids. I didn't care. I just found someone to practice with until I am able to master the product. So learn something different that can help you to make your time go faster. Because sometimes we're going to spend time on things that are not productive. And we're spending time on things that could be done in an easier or a shorter way. So again, learn something different that can help you to speed up. Another thing that we do for time management is we go ahead and we create master calendars, or we can create weekly timetables, or we can create daily to-do lists. So for every person, something is going to be different. To create a master calendar, that may be something I used to do for my whole family. But my problem with the master calendar, I create the calendar and I never go back on the calendar. So that's a problem for me with master calendars. Then some people can do weekly timetables, so they can write out what they're going to do for the week, and then they go ahead and see what do I need to get done over this week so I can set up my priorities. Then you have others that can do well with daily to-do lists. So when I wake up in the morning, I may say, what am I going to do today? What do I have to get done today? And then I says, let me write them down. Whether I find an index card or I find a sticky note, I find some piece of paper that I can carry in my hand. And then I follow that little index card and I cross off as I go along. So I travel with that little index card or that little note paper every single time. And someone says, that's too much work. But guess what? That's what works for me. Sometimes, by the time I start out for the day and I reach halfway down the road, that index card disappears. But it was written down, so it's embedded in my mind. It keeps it going because I spend the time to write down what I needed to do for that day. So for me, I can make a daily to-do list before the next 2 hours. It may go out with the garbage, but because I wrote it down, it stays in my mind. But I can't function well with a calendar, and I can't function well with a timetable. But a to-do list every day, write down something. What am I going to do? How am I going to get it done? And then that is how I do. So for each person, it may be different. All of us are not made up the same way. So some of us may have to keep a master calendar. Some of us may have to keep a weekly timetable, but for others, we need to do a daily to-do list, which I believe is very effective because you can do that in a calendar on Google. You can do that in Microsoft Outlook. You can do that with your notes on your phones. So a to-do list helps you to stay on task. Even when we were growing up in our countryside in Jamaica, we had some way of keeping our records. We were going to the supermarket, we had a list. We could almost state or compare prices between the supermarkets because guess what? We always had some form of a list. We know who had the cheapest meats. We knew how to have the cheapest vegetables because we always have it written down. And so we had to go from place to place to compare, but we had a to-do list and we had a list for various things, and they were always written down. So that's something that we learned. Now, if you want to put it in your electronic device, your phones, your tablets, whatever, you can create that same list. But when you have a list, make sure you stick to it and you're able to cross off what you have done. The next thing that you should try to do, and I believe I am at number 6, is to journalize. Journalize what you're doing. Write some short stories. Journalize it. Make some time while the TV is playing to journalize what you're doing. Another thing that, number 8, turn off distractions. Turn off distractions. People are some of your biggest distractions. They will call you to tell you a bunch of stuff that you don't need to hear. You don't need to be in that conversation. You don't need to be conducting that conversation. But they call you to distract you. And that I realized over a period of time, that many times when people are calling me, it's not to help me. It's to distract me. It's not to educate me. It's to distract me. So you have to find creative ways without insulting them to keep off the distractions, keep off the phones, keep off the unnecessary conversations. Because a lot of time, they're calling you to distract you. Now, another thing that I would tell everyone to do is to make sure for when you're studying or when you're getting your stuff done, you need to know yourself. You need to know what time of the day is a good time for you. Some people are morning people. Some people are night people. So you need to know yourself. Know yourself as a person. And then says, okay, since I am a morning person, maybe I'll do my memorizing in the mornings. Maybe I do something else in the afternoon. But know yourself, and you can know yourself and schedule yourself to figure out how I function better during some meditation time or doing some what we call quiet prayer time. Some people meditate, some people pray. But you need to figure out when you're going to do that time. A quiet time to evaluate. A quiet time to say, this is me. This is what I'm doing. This is the best time of day for me to be doing this. And then when you get that into your schedule, you feel a lot more better, a lot more accomplished, at least from my perspective. So am I saying that I am perfect in anything that I just said to you? No. Not perfect in anything I say, but at least I try to practice it. So the first thing that we talk about is what? Time log and evaluation. And I spoke about how I wanted you to do the time log. However, I am also going to do a YouTube. Because some learners learn better when they listen, and some learners learn better when they see. I am a combination of both. Another thing, establish a schedule. Number 2. Number 3, get up early. Number 4, stay on task. Number 5, create priorities. Get things done. Catch up on your work. Number 6, learn something new. Number 7, keep a journal. Number 8, turn off distractions. Number 9, start new habits. Start new habits, evaluating yourself, reading, praying, whatever you do, meditating, right? So start that new habit. Number 10, remember, evaluate yourself. Evaluate yourself and see what works for me, what don't work for me, what time of day is good for me, what time of day is not good for me. So I hope this podcast is helpful concerning about time management. And the major task, the major thing I want to draw your attention to is to be consistent. I don't care if I am consistently wrong. I try. I get something new and I practice. But I'm consistent in many things. So I may miss a day here or miss a minute there, but I practice myself to be consistent. I am also someone who tries to be persistent. So persistent means I will lose sleep. And my sons are the same. We will lose sleep to get things done. When we're done, then we sleep in the daytime, if that be the case. But someone says, that's not a good thing. But the whole point is getting it done. There's a satisfaction and a motivation that you get when you get things done. I tell all my students, I'd rather get an A, B, or C for effort than sit here and says, I'm going to get it done. No. A, B, or C for effort. So I'm going to work hard at getting it done, out of the way. So you can choose your grade, whether you want an A, B, or C. So when you choose a grade, it's depending on how you manage your time. How much time and effort am I going to put into this class? Be consistent. 30 minutes a day for each task is good enough. Keep off of Facebook. Keep off of these bunch of idle times and those friends that call you and waste your time. Tell them no. Nope. When I'm finished my work, when I'm finished my schoolwork, then I can deal with you. Am I saying don't talk to them at all? No. But I'm saying tell them when you're available. I'm not available now. I'm not entertaining you now. Because that's what 99% of the people at IC do. They try to find a way to distract you while they're getting their stuff done. So, again, those are my few tips on time management. Look out for my YouTube. My YouTube is ESOL, ELL, EAP, SLS. If you type that up, you'll see me. But I'm going to create that YouTube to go along with time management. And am I the first one to come up with this? No. Am I the only one who is saying this? No. But it works. It works for others, and you have to choose the path or choose the areas that work for you. But you can spend 3 hours praying and then says, I don't have no time to do anything. You are the one who want to become a religious fanatic. No. Everybody can be heard, but you don't need 3 hours for that. You can say, I was spending a whole hour on social media. That's your problem. You may need to spend 10 minutes because people out there, all they're doing making jokes. And that's good for them. You may be saying, I'm spending all this time cleaning and washing and cooking. Yeah. But could you do something other than doing all of that work? You need to just get rid of some of the stuff around you so you don't have so many things to handle. Maybe that's what you need to do. I remember one preacher or one speaker was saying one time, he says, we buy furnitures and we stuff them with things. We buy all these cabinets and we stuff them with things. Then we go and we buy soap to wash all these things and put them right back in the cabinet. What sense does that make? That's the way we do our lives. Use what you need to use. Manage your time well. Cut off those that you need to cut off. Nicely and politely. But don't have them wasting your time. End of the day, they have a $60,000 job. You have a $20,000 job. I know that from experience. So, what do I say to all the students? Get your time management in order. Be persistent, be consistent, and remove your distractions. Turn them off. Turn them off. And you'll be better off in the long run. Again, this is Teacher Dean on time management, getting it all done, consistent and persistent.